All right, let's talk cameras. I try not to focus too much on camera gear in this channel because I don't want to give anyone the false impression that you need any specific piece of equipment to create good images, not even to create images like the ones I make. But that being said, camera gear is important, of course. You should enjoy using your camera and your lenses, your equipment. You should enjoy shooting with them. That is way more important than pixel peeping to see which lens is better than the other one. The most important thing is that your camera gear motivates you and pushes you to get out and take photos. Another important point is that this kit that I've built over the years is tailored to my photography and video needs. So I want all of the gear to be able to be used both for photography and for video and in very different situations. That's why you'll see that I have bigger full frame cameras with fast prime lenses, but I also have super zoom lenses that are more versatile and more flexible when the conditions require so. That's the reason why I also have smaller, compact 1-inch sensor cameras. They complement the bigger cameras very well, so I can just bring whatever I need depending on the situation. Of course, I start filming and there is a helicopter passing by. Anyway, let's begin. This combo that you see right here is the one that I use to create the vast majority of my images, and it's the one that I've used for the last, I don't know, year and a half almost exclusively. This lens lives on this camera. The camera itself is a Sony A7Rii. I bought it almost 3 years ago. It's been an amazing camera. As you might know, it's broken now. The screen doesn't work, so I have to use only the viewfinder, which limits me a lot because I can't really get low angles or above my head. So I'm gonna have to fix the screen at some point. If I can't, I don't know what I'm gonna do because I find this to be a great limitation for my photography. So I might have to get rid of it and buy a new one or something, I don't know. But for now, I want to believe that I'm gonna be able to fix it. This is an old camera by today's standard. It was released maybe 7 years ago, I believe. So it's lacking some of the newest features that you can find in almost any new camera today. The autofocus could be better, it could be faster, it could have better battery life. The ergonomics are not the best, but for what I want it for and for what I paid for this is more than enough, and it creates beautiful images. The lens is a Tamron 28 to 200 millimeters. It's 2.8 to 5.6. I bought this lens maybe a year and a half ago, and it's been amazing. Yes, it is a super zoom, it's not the best image quality out there, but again, it's more than enough for me, and the flexibility of the focal length range is what I love about this lens. If you're familiar with my work, you know that I like to shoot in moody conditions, rainy days, snowy days, foggy days, and during those times, the last thing you want to do is to be switching lenses all the time. I find that much more valuable than the better image quality or a faster aperture, and it's also relatively compact and small for the range that it offers. It's very light as well. I absolutely love this combination of camera and lens. Now, because the screen is not working, I found myself using my supposedly video camera very often for stills photography as well. My video camera is a very recent purchase of mine. I bought it just for this trip a couple of months ago or 3 months ago, whatever it was. It's an A7 IV. So it's very similar to the A7Rii in many ways, but it's 6 years newer. So it comes with a lot of technology and a lot of features that this one doesn't have. Now, I gotta say, I prefer the tilting screen for photography over the flip screen because that involves an extra step to just tilt it this way. Also, I really like the exposure compensation dial on the A7R. That's gone on the A7 IV. That is a disappointment because this is pretty much the only setting that I change all the time. I shoot in aperture priority mode, usually shooting wide open, so that is how I control the exposure. Another little downside of the A7 IV over the A7R is that it's limited to just 33 megapixels instead of 42. That is not a big deal at all most of the time, unless I'm shooting with my APS-C lens. I'm gonna talk about that lens later. But in APS-C mode, the A7 IV creates 8 megapixel images versus the 12. I'm talking square. I'm not really sure about the full readout of the sensor 3x2, but in a square, I get 12 megapixels with that, 8 with the A7 IV. 8 megapixels are still plenty for what I want to do with my images, to use in books, online, or to make prints. That is more than enough, but it doesn't give me a lot of room when it comes to cropping. The 12 megapixels here that I can get with this camera using APS-C lens do give me that. Everything else about the A7 IV is just better compared to the A7R. Obviously, it's a much newer camera. The battery life is much better and much improved. I love that I can finally shoot in square natively in camera, so I can see my exact composition. Again, it's not a huge deal because I have the grid lines on this camera, but sometimes when the subject is very tight in the frame, sometimes I think that I have more room to breathe on the sides than I really do, because I have the whole, I'm looking at the whole sensor, you know, instead of just the square framing. So yeah, having the square aspect ratio natively in camera, it's beneficial. And also it has a dual SD card slot, even though I haven't used it, to be honest. I just use one memory card, maybe it's out of habit. But yeah, that's pretty much it about the A7 IV when it comes to still photography from my point of view. Of course, it has many more features that might apply to your use case. But for me, I'm still hoping to fix this camera because I really want to keep shooting the A7R. I really like this camera. Okay, let's talk lenses. But before we do that, I have one rule. I made a video about this a few months ago, or a few years ago, I don't remember. I have one rule when it comes to buying new camera gear, and it has to fit in my camera bag. If it doesn't fit, that means that it's not coming with me on trips. And if it's not coming with me on trips, that means that I'm not using it. So I have to get rid of it. I don't wanna have camera gear gathering dust on the shelf. So this is my camera bag. It's a Low Pro Tactic 450 AW, the first version. I've had this camera bag for almost 6 years now, or 7 years, I don't know. I got it because I got the Bronica, which was a very bulky, very heavy camera, and the lenses were pretty heavy as well. So I needed something bigger, and this was what I found. And I'm pretty happy with this bag. It lasted me 6 to 7 years, but it's on its last legs, I believe. The zippers that just don't work as well. But it is pretty nice. It protects my gear. It has a rain jacket, so I can shoot in the rain and the snow. And yeah, it's been to many places, to the top of mountains, and it's been in many different conditions, and yeah, pretty nice. The lens that I use the most after the Super Zoom has to be the one that I'm using for this video. Is the wide angle zoom from Tamron, as well as the 17 to 28 2.8. With just those two lenses, I could do 95% of my work for both video and photography. It's a pretty nice, compact, small, light, and a very fast lens. The only problem I have with this lens, but it's something that is pretty common among ultra-wide lenses, is the vignetting. It's pretty strong, and that is especially noticeable when I take long exposures at 18, 19, 20 millimeters. So I have to step it down to something like 5, 6. Otherwise, it's a great lens. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna have links in the description down below to all the products and cameras, lenses, and everything that I'm going to be talking about today. Everything that is still for sale, of course, because sadly the A7R is an example of something, a product that has been discontinued. All right, let's keep going with the zoom lenses. I have another two. The first one is the Tamron 70 to 180 2.8. This has to be my least favorite lens and one of the least used lenses I have, because it overlaps with my super zoom. So I have the 70 to 180 focal range in the super zoom, and 2.8 is definitely faster than the super zoom, but not by much. And actually at some parts of the focal range, like the from 70 to 100, I have an 85 1.4, so I prefer to use that lens. So yeah, I feel like it doesn't give me that much extra. I feel like if I forgot this lens at home, I wouldn't miss it. So I'm considering getting rid of it, but replacing it with a different lens. And this is a question because maybe some of you have used 135 lenses in the past for landscapes or the kind of photography that I do. I'm considering getting a 135 1.8 prime lens to replace this one, but I'm not entirely sure because 135 might be a challenging focal length. But yeah, otherwise, by the way, it's a very, very nice lens. It's amazing, and in low light it definitely outperforms the super zoom. Is that I just don't find myself shooting you know, at 180 or something like that when it's dark outside that often. Let's move on to the APS-C lens that I mentioned earlier. This is the Sony G70 to 350 millimeters. I don't use this lens as often either. I guess I don't use any lens as often compared to the super zoom. So I'm gonna be saying the same thing about every lens I own that is not the super zoom. But yeah, this is an APS-C lens, so it's not really intended to be used with full frame cameras. Those are the ones that I have right now. I have it because I come from an APS-C system. I used to shoot with A6000s and that kind of system from Sony, and this is just a leftover from my transition to full frame that I've been working on for the last 3 years. This is the last survivor, and it's a lens that keeps finding a spot in my camera bag because 350 millimeters in APS-C is an equivalent of 525 in full frame. So I can get 12 megapixel images, square images with my A7Rii using this lens at 525 millimeters. And that is amazing because if you want to go full frame at that focal length, we are talking about much bigger, much heavier, and much more expensive lenses. So I'm very glad that I have this lens. I've made quite a few very nice images with this. All right, let's move on to prime lenses. I have 3, and that's it, by the way. I'll be done with lenses then. Just gonna put them in my pocket. So I'm gonna go in order of age. The first one I bought was this one, the Rockinon 85 1.4. An absolutely beautiful lens. And the reasoning for me to buy this lens is because my favorite lens on the Bronica system was the 150 millimeters f4, and this is kind of an equivalent to that one. This is more of a portrait lens to take portraits of people, but I use it to take portraits of trees and stuff like that. And it has a get out. It's got a beautiful bokeh and it's amazing in low light, much better than the 70-180, so that's why they overlap a little bit. The downside of this lens is that it's the only one with a filter thread that is not 67 millimeters. Every other lens I own is 67 millimeters, and that makes my life much easier when it comes to using filters. This one is 77, is bigger, but anyway, so I have to have a different ND filter just for this lens. I have to have a step up ring adapter or whatever when I want to use my bigger ND filters. We'll talk about them pretty soon. Next lens is the Samyang 50mm 1.4. I got this one used. This is the Mark 1, by the way, and the 85 too. So this lens is kind of an old model. I think it's like 6 years old or something like that. It is, when it comes to the build quality and the autofocus performance and all that kind of stuff, it is very low quality. It makes a lot of noise when it's focusing. It's very slow. But the images that come from this lens are beautiful. And I got it used secondhand for $200, I believe. So it was a bargain and I had to get it, and I'm glad I got it because it's just another tool that I have here if I want to use it. Now, in opposition to the very cheap and very low quality built Samyang 50 is the Sony G Master 35mm. I'm gonna make a video just about this lens pretty soon. because it deserves a whole video why I bought it, why I spent so much money on this lens. But the short version is that I used to have the Samyang 35, is the same from the same series of these other two that I just showed you. I really enjoyed a lot shooting with that lens, but it was huge, it was super heavy, and it was a burden on my back. So this one offers the same performance, even better image quality at half the size, half the weight, but twice the money. This is another very recent purchase. I got it along with the A7 IV, and I'm pretty happy with it. I just wish it was cheaper, that's for sure. Another very important component of my kit when it comes to stills is my long exposure kit here. I love long exposure photography because that, in combination with black and white, lets me create stuff that doesn't really exist in real life. The real life is in color, and real life, you know, the water is moving and the clouds are moving, but with long exposures, I can actually manipulate that reality and make something different. So this is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. It's all you need for long exposure. It's a cable remote, which I still don't understand why we need this in 2022. Maybe it's just a thing with Sony cameras. I think it happens with other brands as well, but I just wish I could, you know, select the duration of the exposure on the camera. So if I want to take a 4-minute long exposure, I should be able to select 4 minutes or 3 minutes and 35 seconds, but no, it can only go up to 30 seconds for whatever reason. So that's why I have the cable remote, so I can hold the exposure for as long as I want to. And then I have this ring adapter to hold the holder in front of the lens, and this is where I mount the ND filters. I have a whole video about ND filters because I have more than these ones. I have the regular screw-on filters, you know, the circular ones for video and for just walking around, but these are the ones that I use for long exposure. They are the 100 by 100 millimeter Lee filters. I have 3. I'm not gonna take them all out because, again, I have that other video that you can watch there, but I have the 6, the 10 and the 15 stop ND filter. I use them all depending on the situation. So this is my long exposure photography kit. Very, very important. And that's all about photography. Let's talk video. As I said, my main video camera is the A7 IV with the 17 to 28 millimeter lens. That lens lives on that camera pretty much all the time. That is very versatile because I can put the camera on APS-C mode and I still get 4K video, and at 28 millimeters it's an equivalent of 42. So I have a range from 17 to 42, which is pretty great to have. But as much as I like this combination, sometimes it can be a little bit too heavy and too bulky, especially if I'm going hiking somewhere, or if I go just on a walk around town, or if I don't want to risk it because it's rather expensive, and if it's windy and I'm recording myself, so I walk 10, 20 feet away and I'm far away from the tripod, so if the wind tips the tripod or something, I don't have time to run and catch it before it falls. I've lost some cameras that way, and I don't want it to happen to the A7 IV. So that's why I have this little guy that you can see right here. Let me show you. So this is the ZV-1, and it's the little brother to the A7 IV. It's just a small 1-inch sensor camera. I really love these cameras. I always like the RX100 series, and this is the one that I have right now. I really like it for video. It's good for photography as well. The bad thing about this camera is that it's not very wide. It's an equivalent of 24 millimeters, and if you add the stabilization on top of that, it really crops in, so the you know, your face takes the whole frame. So that's why I have this wide angle adapter. It's an Ulanzi wide angle adapter, and it gives me a much wider point of view for vlogging when I'm talking to the camera, and also to capture like expansive landscapes like this one. It's a great little camera. The image quality is obviously worse than the A7 IV, but it's pretty good. It's better than the phone, at least in my opinion. Biggest downside to this camera is the battery life. It has a tiny battery and they die very quickly, especially when it's cold outside. Two little accessories I have here for video. I have this little Manfrotto tripod that I can use in combination with the A7 IV, but especially with the ZV one. So if I want to go really light, I don't want to bring any tripods, I can always bring this and try to come up with some interesting angle. This can be useful for stills photography as well. I've used it in the past to take some long exposures, like one in Venice and another one in another Italian town that I don't remember the name now, but yeah, when you go into a town or something and you don't want to bring a big tripod, you can always have something like this, and even though it's not perfect, it can help quite a lot. I'm going to talk about my other tripod pretty soon, but one thing that you'll see is that it has this Arca Swiss release plate. I have the same on the other tripod. They are both Manfrotto, so they were not very friendly to Arca Swiss mounts, but I prefer this one, and I have the same mount on every of my cameras, so I can switch them from that my main travel tripod to this tiny one, and very quickly and very easily. Another thing that I use for video quite a lot is this little light here. It's pretty bright, and if you find yourself in a poorly lit situation, like in a hotel room, Airbnb, or even inside the car, well, this could be very useful. My tripod of choice, and I've had this tripod for quite a few years. This specific one for 4 years, but before that I had another two. One I lost in Glacier National Park, and the other one broke in the winter of Indiana. But I bought another one. It's my third one because I really like it. It's light, compact. It's aluminum. It's not carbon fiber, but still it's pretty light, and it's affordable, and I really like it. Again, it's a Manfrotto Befree. The only problem that I have with this tripod, and that's the reason why I'm considering getting a bigger one again. I used to have a bigger Manfrotto 055, but it was very big and heavy, and I kind of got tired of it, but I really miss the height. This tripod is just not high enough for some shots or even recording video. I always have to be leaning down like that. Oh, I talk about video and totally forgot about the audio and the sound. So I use most of the time a Røde video microphone on top of the camera. It's a very affordable, I think it's $50 microphone, and I love it. It doesn't need to be powered by the camera or any external batteries, and it has a pretty high quality sound, and it's very great to get the ambient sounds from water, rain, or whatever. When I'm talking though, I use this one. This is a relatively recent purchase as well. It's a Røde Wireless Go 2. I have a receiver on top of the camera and a transmitter that I have with me, so I can talk to the lavalier mic here, and I can just move around, and no matter how far or how close I am to the camera, the sound, the volume of my voice should stay the same. I have both of them connected at the same time right now, the Video Micro and the Røde Wireless Go, with a splitter, I think that's the name, cable, so I can have the sound from both at the same time. So if for whatever reason the wireless Go decides to stop working, at least I have the other one. Or if for whatever reason I want to have the ambient sound, that is probably going to be better to get it from the Video Micro. All right, this is a little bit of cheating because it doesn't fit in my camera bag, so it kind of breaks the rule that I have for myself, but I don't count it as a camera per se, so it's okay. I don't break my own laws. It's a drone. This is my drone. This is the DJI Mini 2. I bought it a year and a half ago, and I didn't use it as much until I got here to Norway. It's just so beautiful everywhere that I had to fly it. And yeah, I've been getting into drone photography a little bit more here. I made a few images that I really like with it, and it's been pretty amazing. It's very stable and it flies very well. I had the DJI Mini 1 before this one. It was a mess. It kept falling from the sky, I kept losing signal. It was not very good in strong winds. This one has performed very, very well. I have the Fly More combo or whatever. It came with the remote and with 2 extra batteries and stuff like that. So, and this bag. So that's why I just keep it in this bag all the time. There you go. Oh, I'm talking about bags. I guess I should show you the other one. I talk about this bag in another video from a few months ago where I talk about the gear that I bring on my daily walks in my hometown. And this is the bag that I use there. It's a Peak design, everyday Sling 6 liters, and I can fit either a couple prime lenses or my camera with one lens here very easily, and it's waterproof, so even if it starts raining, I just put my camera in there and it's gonna be protected. And I used this one during this trip to just go on a little walk or go into town. I don't want to carry the whole backpack with my 6, 7, 8 lenses, whatever I have. So that's one of the situations where I grab my safety one, put it here, you know, with another couple lenses, take photos. If I want to record a video, I can still do it. Yeah. I just realized I'm missing another camera because I do have a GoPro. Oh, here. Huh. I have a GoPro Hero 7. I don't know, it's 4 or 5 years old, I want to say. And this camera, I don't know what to say about it. It's great in the sense that it's really small. The stabilization is pretty good, and of course it's waterproof. You can shoot in any conditions, but the battery is not good and it's very, very baggy. Sometimes it just stops recording whenever it wants. So I don't use it as often because of that. I have a hate-love relationship with action cameras, and yeah. But yeah, that's all. That's all the gear that I brought with me here to Norway. It's all the gear that I bring with me everywhere because that's, as I said, the first rule that I have for myself. I need to use the gear that I own. If not, it's gotta go. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. And please, 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 please remember that getting outside and going places and putting yourself in, in situations where magical conditions can happen is way more important than any piece of equipment. It's all about the light. Look for the light. It doesn't matter how good or how expensive your camera is. If the light is horrible and harsh, you're not going to make good images. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.